Hi. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about how we engage with learning. So a lot of things that have been coming up for us are around how learning new skills helps us build those things like transformational coping skills, which is super important for being able to move through fear in a sort of a strategy that works for you, as well as expanding our concepts and that emotional granularity, all of those really important things that come from learning a new skill that helps us regulate ourselves, both like our body budget and like using different concepts that come into our minds. Um, and we even have touched on with our conversation with Brian Johnson in episode 4 of Friends of Fear of how you need that self-worth and that self-belief in order to like push through those moments where the fear is trying to keep you stuck in like a comfortable spot. And we talk about like the use of mentors there for helping fight those like internal voices. So a lot of this comes down to like how we're learning new things. And I think traditional learning approaches, so you think of like school, college, whatever it has been, haven't always been the best for many people. So if that's not working, and we know that learning is going to be super important for us, like so what do we do now? So I thought it's well worth putting some time into understanding like how we learn and knowing how you learn. So people talk about like learning styles as well as like common processes for going about learning. If we can know ourselves in terms of how we learn, then we're more likely to achieve like consistent learning practices and really get the most benefits from learning rather than maybe like a sporadic moment trying to learn in like a way that someone has told you is the right way to learn, and then getting more and more frustrated with yourself, and then it all just becomes even bigger. So if we're familiar with what traditional learning is, so it's that kind of like lecture style, classroom based, you learn some more facts, and that's giving you like little bits of more knowledge about something you already kind of know, which is, still helpful, still interesting, but it's not really going to change your world. And we come to things like coaching because you want to go through a change. We have in mind like there's something really brilliant that I want to like get the most out of, or there's something that's like really difficult right now and I just need to find like the best way to move through that. You're going in needing some new knowledge, skills, whatever it is to help you do that. So traditional learning isn't quite going to cut it because you're just building on something, a way of being that you already have, knowledge that you already know. So Parsloe and Leetham, who have a book on like coaching and mentoring and like learning styles, they go into what they call double loop and triple loop learning. So this is when you go beyond just bits of new information, and it's all about looking at experiencing, putting that new knowledge into practice and learning like completely new models, new ways of thinking. So you're actually learning like a new way of living, and you're putting that through this, what do you call like structured reflection, that really helps you as you're experiencing things to then think about, oh, so what is this doing for me? What am I learning? What sort of old ways of being no longer are working for me? And now that I've got this gap, what am I practicing? What is working now? So we know traditional learning isn't going to cut it. We want to do something that's a little bit more experiential, has some structured reflection. But in terms of like you and what your particular learning styles are in this model of learning, and considering what your learning styles are. And there's a couple of people, Peter Honey and Alan Mumford, who've suggested 4 core learning styles. And these are aligned with, there's a common sort of cycle of learning introduced by this guy called Cole, who suggested that to learn anything, you have your experience, and then you go into reflecting on it, you go into a conclusion, like what have I learned from this, and you plan a new way of being, and you go into doing that. So it's an ongoing cycle. And these learning styles are based on like those core 4 stages of learning. Because you might notice then as you're listening to this that there are parts of that learning cycle that you already naturally do well in, and then maybe the other ones are like less valuable for you, or you just notice less of like a connection with them. So one, connected to the first bit, the experience, is an activist learning style. So this is when you very much just want to have a go. You often tend to be quite like an enthusiastic person. You just love to like act first, see what happens, and very much like an open-minded, like I'll do anything once sort of attitude. So if this is a bit like you're probably going to learn better in these learning environments where you can just get stuck in and have a go. So you're doing sort of short activities. It might be things like role play that you can just put it into practice and like almost like get it into your body. You know, sort of a workplace typical environment, you might talk about like, oh, let's just throw them in at the deep end. Like this would be great for you. Like you just want to get stuck in. And then when we move from experience to the reflection stage, if you've got a reflective learning style, you're probably going to love that bit. You tend to be someone who wants to sort of stand back, experience it, observe it, listen to other people's observations, maybe before giving your own, and having that kind of like bigger picture moment. And you're likely to then learn best when you can have that a bit of space just to listen, observe, reflect. You may enjoy being able to do that like research and analysis to really like get the full picture down. Thinking of the learning cycle where we've done experience, we've done reflection, you're then on the sort of drawing conclusions of your learning cycle so far. People who have what they call a theorist learning style do well in that conclusion stage. So you tend to be someone that likes to sort of adapt and integrate your observations, and you're coming to a kind of like logically sound conclusion of what this all means. So hence theorists, you're kind of developing a theory. And you tend to enjoy tackling problems in like a process, a structured way of coming to a rational conclusion. And I notice that you're this sort of learning style. If you tend to be more of like a perfectionist, you like to have like a rational scheme of things where things fit into certain theories. And you might enjoy leaning on things that are like clear, basic assumptions and principles to help you apply your learning and to engage with the world. So here you would probably learn best through very intellectually structured learning processes. So you're allowed to question things, challenge things, and invited to sort of problem solve. You probably enjoy learning environments where you're given like a concept to explore, something new. You can like see how that fits into your experience of like where it applies, where it works, where it doesn't. And then the final ones, we've done experience, reflection, conclusion. We're now on the planning. Here they have a learning style of a pragmatist. So this is you if you enjoy being able to try out the new theories, putting them into action, almost like as soon as you've learned it, then being able to like immediately try it out in something. And you tend to be sort of positively searching out for new ideas all the time. And yeah, wanting the first opportunity to then be like, oh, I've got this new idea. I'm going to try it out here and see what happens. So you'll learn best, if this sounds like you, in environments where you can, learn these new techniques, where you know what the obvious like benefit of it will be. So you'll probably get frustrated if you're just learning things for like the sake of it. You want to be like, I'm learning this to try and do X, Y, Z. Learning styles, it then means that you can like adapt your learning environment to work for you rather than like, this is the way that learning is done. So we've so far explored that, yes, learning is going to be really key for helping us move through fear. All of those delicious reasons of like the transformational coping skills, better self-worth, self-belief. You've got new concepts for like labeling your emotions, for having that emotional granularity in order to notice and regulate yourself to be better equipped to manage your fear and the stress and anxiety that can all go with that. And we understand now that we have different learning styles. And so rather than following a traditional learning model, we can adapt how we're learning to better suit what will help us engage with the new content. And also that by then knowing your style, you can go beyond just learning new bits of information about something you already know and actually try to learn something that's completely transformative for you. So a new way of thinking, being able to put that into practice, experience it, really get it in your body, and then through structured reflection, be starting to make these new connections and build like new ways of thinking, new models for life that's really gonna like get you to that change of connecting with something that's positive to the most, or being able to move through a negative change in the best way for you, your well-being, and what you need. All that, and yes, committed to the learning. What's really important here is to then feel emotionally ready to go on this learning journey. So engaging with a change, positive or negative, is emotionally like taxing. It's going to require like a lot of like emotional, spiritual, intellectual input from yourself. So often when I'm with my coaching clients, we go through like core stages of this, and it very much begins with like developing that awareness of where you are, awareness of what's happening for you, and like how you're feeling about this like need for a change. And that can then really connect to client through like understanding how they're feeling about this change, and then any sort of strategies around going through it aren't just pulled from the air, but actually working with how you're feeling right now. Actually, you may well have experienced this, but if you're in like an acute experience of fear, stress, anxiety, your brain will shut down and you're not really able to take on new learning, and you're not able to do the things that like help you put it into practice. You can very much see this like when we're like training the Muay Thai. If you're like too stressed, too anxious, you're like, you get slow, you get sluggish, or you like freeze up. So you're not really putting into practice this new way of being for you to achieve your goals. So yeah, coaching is an amazing way of doing this because it provides that psychological safety, that safe space where you're trying things out. You can unpack your thoughts without having to kind of like filter it where someone else might perceive what you're unraveling in real time in any sort of judgmental way or with potential repercussions. And I'll talk through like the rest of these stages, but you've got that awareness and you're like emotionally ready. It's then important to have a really clear purpose for your learning. So what you're trying to get out of it, out of the learning, like what change you're trying to achieve through this learning, you're then able to really plan what needs to happen, like where you are now, what needs to happen to get you to where you need to be. And then you're building that, like you're feeling empowered, you're really connected with the learning. And it's like getting in touch with all your like motivators, like why you're doing the change. It's all wrapped up with that purpose. And actually, like a quick moment on that, your motivations to learn, the sort of more traditional can be like, oh, I want to learn this new skill so I can start doing this new service and get new money. So I'm going to get like a boost in salary from learning this new thing. The research has found that like those sort of extrinsic motivators aren't quite as powerful as an intrinsic motivator, which is actually like the process of the learning itself. So the joy and interest that's coming from this new information, which will be all wrapped up with the change that you're trying to get. Because if you're trying to get a new change of, let's say, you're tired of your washing machine always breaking down and you're having to cough up money to like fix it, you then be learning like, oh, I want to be able to do this myself. So then if you're excited about the concept of like being able to know how this piece of technology works and like being able to be more like independent and able to like, yeah, look after your like home appliances, then like learning how to fix it, you're getting like excitement from just the process of being able to do that skill and learning how to do that skill, rather than like an end outcome of I'm going to have a fixed washing machine, if you get me. It's a really random example. I think because I'm in my kitchen right now, washing machine has jumped to mind. Stage that I typically go through with my clients is then the actual experience. We've got the purpose, we've got the like motivation to learn. It's then you've planned in at these moments where you're going to put things into practice, that could be like a big thing or just little by little. And then between each sort of experience is going through some sort of structured reflection. And I think the structured reflection is something that, if you're not engaging with coaching, is something brilliant to do independently. There's so many ways you can do structured reflection. There's all sorts of like reflection guides online and like templates, whatever it is. But it's having a set way that connects you with what happened, your feelings, thoughts about it, and then moving into like what you want to do next, what you're learning from it. And I really love, there's something that we used a lot in our counseling training, which is the Gibbs model of reflection. I think that's really worked for me personally, where it's just like a few set sort of prompts, and it's what happened, so just a couple of sentences. And here, a bit like where we were talking about, the learning process needs to be exciting in itself. Like, you don't need to capture like everything that happened and try and write like War and Peace. Just pull out whatever was like most significant to you from that experience of applying your new learning. And then you go through, how did I feel in that moment? And then the sort of the thinking is, you ask yourself, well, what can I sort of analyze from this? What was going on for me? And then you can also go into like what was good and bad about the situation. So like if there was a particular benefit that you got from it, and maybe there was something that, you wish something had happened or wish something had been different about that experience. And then you can go into, okay, what is my key takeaway from this? What am I learning from having gone through this experience, and the thoughts and feelings I had around it? And then just a little prompt on, what am I going to do going forwards different, having gone through this experience and now this reflection. And I like this Gibbs model reflection actually, because it then ends with listing 3 things that you're grateful for from that day, that week, that moment, whatever it is. Because as well worth the discussion in another session, but like the power of gratitude is pretty potent. It's pretty potent. We've gone off on a whim there. Oh yes, experiences, structured thinking. I love the Gibbs model of reflection, but there are loads out there, so do have a hunt. Find what works for you. And if you're just going through the structure of experience and reflection, you're then getting into what's kind of like the final stage of a learning journey, which is that lifelong journey. So it's now so embedded in you. You've found your style. You're doing learning in a way that works for you. You're also learning about something like the process of the learning is itself exciting. It's not just the end results of it that's driving you to keep going. You've got this consistent practice. You're now like any sort of like lifelong journey. So here there's no real end point. It's just you're in this ongoing cycle where we discussed of like going through, being aware of the need, getting that motivation, that clear purpose, going through like experiences and your moments of structured reflection. You're then in what Parsloe and Leetham have called like this lifelong journey experience. And this is one of the reasons why I was drawn to coaching and love it so much, is that there's like a real integrity of, if you're doing the coaching right, it's about setting people up to be able to independently continue in whatever their goal was, wherever they're now set up in this new way of being. So that's plenty to be thinking about. You can now reflect back on those learning styles that Parsloe and Leetham have suggested, and that cycle of learning from Kogan, of the experience going through to reflection, conclusions, planning your new way of being, and continuing around that circle. And think about that new way of going about learning. It's not just traditional adding new little bits of knowledge, but actually that more transformational learning of doing it, practicing the reflection, and thinking about like new models and actually completely different mindsets about how you can go about whatever you're hustling to do. A good first step is just to really engage with the learning styles, think about which one really connected to you, and start thinking about where in your life you can make more of those opportunities that align best to your learning style and those sort of environments that we were talking about earlier. Now, be clear on what you're hoping to get out of this new learning development opportunity, beyond just the end goal of building all that emotional granularity, the transformational coping skills, all those things that set us up to move through fear, but also to be in an experience of learning where just it in itself is rewarding for you, makes your heart sing. A structured reflection model that works for you, even if it's just running down on a piece of paper or in your mind or a voice note to yourself. This is what happened of particular significance. How did I feel in the moment? What do I think about why I felt that? What am I learning? What am I going to do next? And notice how that changes the way you build and apply new knowledge. And please let me know in the comments if there's a particular part of this that was most helpful for you. And if you need any more pointers on like what to do next in relation to this learning sort of model and way of being. And I hope to hear from you soon. Bye.